Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Firewall, the business bytecast, where tech beats business. Get expert insights from real-world business leaders, IT experts, and the latest trends in bite-sized episodes. Stay ahead and explore what's beyond the firewall. And welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Firewall, where we're always trying to bring new innovative thought leaders, business ideas, and technology to the forefront. And today we have an extra special guest, Natalie. Natalie, why don't you tell us about yourself and what you're up to these days?
Thank you so much, Eris, for having me on your show. And I'm really excited. So my name is Natalie Benitah. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Inside Out Impact Group. I started this business about 8 months ago, and I have never looked back from corporate life, which is where I came from. So my background is I've spent 30 years, more than I care to count, leading tech businesses and Fortune 50 companies. I spent some time at HP, HPE, and my latest gig was at Microsoft, led multi-billion-dollar businesses. And this summer, I said, I am done. I am done with corporate life, and I am following my lifelong passion dream of becoming an executive coach, which is what I have done. I know, huge pivot, but I am using my extensive corporate background and now founder background to coach highly motivated, very successful executive women leaders and founders to be unstoppable in their business, in their careers, and in their life. And so it's a complete shift from what I've done, but it takes everything, all of my experience, and it comes together as I help these women navigate through their businesses and their life to be unstoppable. So that's me.
Congratulations. And I know that our paths have crossed, many times through, HP, HPE, Microsoft, and I've always found you an amazing leader, listening to you on stage, at different sessions and stuff like that. And I've always been inspired as a business owner hearing you at those events. When I found out that you started this new venture, it was like, oh, wow, this was a big moment. Like for me, it was like, this is a major shift. And a lot of executives don't do that. They don't either follow their passions in that regard, stepping back from that, that leadership role now to empowering other people. So I commend you for actually taking that brave moment to step away from that. But at the same time, really much success for you in this regard, because I think a lot of people out there are looking for that guidance and that direction. So it's amazing to hear what you're achieving already in such a short time. It's just incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I could go on in 10 minutes just saying things, but so the Inside Out name, which is really interesting, what does that mean to you, and how did you come up with this whole philosophy of, building around that Inside Out, impact group? How did that come up?
Okay. Actually, a lot of thought went into that. So I'm glad you asked. So for me, Inside is all about, that's the executive coaching. And when I think about how a person becomes unstoppable, it starts in their mind. It starts with their belief systems. It starts with their thoughts about themselves. Can I do this? Am I capable? Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? All these self-doubt, inner questions we ask ourselves. Women leaders especially ask those kinds of questions. And so when I think about Inside, I think about helping through the executive coaching. I work with people and help them reframe their limiting beliefs so they can become unstoppable. So that's the inside part. The outside part is, I don't know if you know this, but when a person enters a room, people make a first impression before you even speak in 1/10 of a second. And so that's the outside part. I also offer wardrobe coaching, and that's exclusively for my women clients. I do have some men clients, but exclusively for my women clients, I offer wardrobe coaching. And it's not about shopping sprees or anything like that. It's about taking the clothes they have and helping them look and feel their best, so that when they get on stage or they enter a boardroom or lead a meeting, they feel amazing. And when they feel amazing, their confidence and everything else on the inside goes forward. And so that's the inside out transformation. So the inside executive coaching, helping them shift their mindsets, get rid of all their limiting beliefs so that they can be unstoppable. And then the outside part is the wardrobe so that they show up with confidence, so that when they have addressed what they want to be on the inside, they also look the part. And so that's the inside out. And the impact is, it's about results. I guess having been a corporate leader and managing P&Ls, for me, investments need to yield results. They need to have impact. And I've done a lot of research on just how much impact an investment into executive coaching or even wardrobe coaching can have on a business if you're a founder, or on an executive if you're leading a team or a corporation. It's actually incredible. It's up to 70 times the investment you make. And so it's almost like a no-brainer. And so the impact is huge for me. And I work with people over 10 weeks, 3 months, and I kind of say, I would like you to fire me pretty much after 3 months. Like, you don't need me anymore. And that's the idea. And so it's to have impact on them, and also have an ROI on their investment that they've made. So that's the reason for the name. It's a long-winded winded answer, but so much thought went into it.
Yeah, it's very deep in that regard, but your highlight points are key and critical, right? Like when we were growing up, at least when I was growing up, it was always dressed for success, right? And a lot of people didn't know how to put themselves together. And I would say 20, 30 years ago, when I got into the corporate world, it was easy. Everyone just wore a shirt and tie and a jacket and or a suit, and it was like everyone had the same uniform, a blue suit, you know. And today it's like, I see some generations having different sort of wardrobe styles. You know, I think it's a question now of them learning how to put those things together. Fashion has also evolved where now everything is, you know, smart casual, and, you know, but at the same time, 100%, that half a second you walk into that room, assumptions are made by your visual appearance. Doesn't matter, you know, if it's, you know, whatever it is, clothing you're wearing, tattoos, whatever it is, even how you walk into the room, shoulders back, you know, head high, you know, do you walk in with your head down? Those are going to make physical impressions on your perspective. And individuals will just say, okay, this person is not confident because their head's down when they walked into the room. That's a symbol of, you know, confidence and assurance. And at the same time, I agree with you with all the other metrics that you put together between, you know, what's in people's minds. And a lot of people have historical, you know, aspects in their thoughts where they don't believe, it's their limiting factor. They don't believe they're the best. And it's not about being the best. It's about being confident about what you do know. And I'm not stepping on your leadership skills here, but I fully agree with all of these things, because as a business owner, you know, it was challenging walking into a room. And I remember walking into my first boardroom, and it was like all these people in suits. And I was like, they were so much older than me. They knew more about things, but I was the guy they were looking for to come in and tell them, hey, we have a problem with our network. We have a problem with our IT. Can you help us? And at that moment, I realized I'm the smartest guy in the room on this topic. And it was like, okay, well, they're here to listen to me, so I better make sure I know what I'm saying. So
That's right.
it's that moment of aha. And I love the fact that you've also done you know, I call it the graduation program. So this is like a 1 semester, 3 months or whatever it is. You're in, you're out. You better graduate. And
Right.
you know, and I want you to fire me after 3 months or 4 months or whatever that period is, because I think you need to grasp these tools, but these tools are set for life. And if you can learn them, it's the most powerful thing for anybody, actually. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's a great concept, and I think it's a great business that a lot of people have struggling today, especially with social media and other things that are impacting people's, you know, confidence out there. So yeah, and I have to ask, what's the story? Why was what was that aha moment for you that you said, I'm going to give up this executive leadership at the Fortune top 50 in the world, and now you're going to help everybody out there? Because
Okay.
obviously it's a big transition. What was that cause?
Huge transition. And every now and then I'm like, pinch me, am I really doing this? Yeah, it's so I don't know that there was one moment, but there certainly were many that led up to this. And let me start with a story. Uh, it wasn't a particularly good story. It was 3 years ago, in 3 days actually, March 7th, 2023. I was on what was supposed to be a beautiful ski trip, lifetime kind of thing. I'd never skied in the Alps. I grew up in Montreal, skied every weekend in the Laurentians. I've skied in Whistler. I mean, all over the place, avid skier. And this was supposed to be, the most awesome culminating moment of my ski life, I guess. And literally within, I don't know, the first run, we were in Italy and I caught an edge and I fell. I have fallen so many times. If you're a skier, you kind of can relate. And this was not a spectacular run or anything. It was just very ho hum. I just caught an edge. I was going fast and the ground was hard and I fell very suddenly. Fast forward to imagine this picture of a helicopter lifting me off the hill with a backdrop of a beautiful snow-capped mountain and a blue sky. So basically, I was heavily injured. It was life-altering. I was told in Italian through Google Translate that I would have to learn to walk again, that I had multiple fractures in my right pelvis, and that I was lucky that I didn't need surgery, but for a month I'd have to be completely bedridden, learn to walk, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, we have no room for you, get out. Yeah. And so we bought our first pair of Italian wheels. It wasn't a Ferrari. That would have been nice. It was a wheelchair. And we made our way back to the hotel, which became my convalescence home. And my doctors became the insurance people. Yeah. They were the ones bringing me help and helping me get back to Toronto. Anyways. And so the picture that changed my life, I wrote a blog about it on LinkedIn, was the picture that my husband took of this helicopter, flying away. A beautiful picture. And so the next morning, as I finally made it back to this hotel room, complete agony, can't move, life has changed. I don't even know how I'm getting back to Toronto. I'm looking at this beautiful picture. I mean, stunning picture. And I posted it on Facebook without any captions, anything like that. And I got people going, wow, you're heli-skiing, you're teleskiing, you're doing all these great things. And I thought, oh man, interesting perspective. I asked my husband, I said, when you took this picture, what were you thinking? He says, Nat, I was terrified. I was actually worried that this helicopter would hit a mountain and crash. And he says, I didn't know how I'd see you, in what shape. And I'm like, interesting perspective. My perspective was I was in that helicopter on a gurney, not moving, seeing boots and hearing people speak Italian. I was petrified. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, 3 completely different perspectives of the exact same moment. I have had executive coaching, and I know it's all about mindset, transformation of your mind. And I thought to myself, what would it take for me to focus on this beautiful image as opposed to the crap behind it, the how many weeks, months it would take me to convalesce and learn to walk again? What would it take for me to focus on that positive perspective? And so I dug deep in everything I had learned about myself and what you learn about executive coaching. In true executive coaching, it's all about mindset and how to focus on those positives, the perspective shifts, the beliefs, all of that. And I said to my husband, if I'm going to go through this hell, something awesome is going to come out of it. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, trust me, I'm not doing this for nothing. So I wrote an article a year later after I convalesced, and I realized that there was something there. People wanted to know my story. They wanted to hear the story. How did you do that? How do you shift your perspective? How do you change your mind about something? And that's when I started to realize, wow, I think there's something there. And I had gone through executive coaching, and it made me realize that's a powerful thing. And I mean, elite athletes, they have a whole ton of coaches. And I'm thinking, elite leaders, how come they don't have a ton of coaches? Some do, but not all. And I thought to myself, there is something there. And so that sort of noodled in my head for about 3 years. And then I started to take a course. So now I'm a certified coach. And I've done the actual training through the International Coaching Federation. And so that was what made me realize, okay, and I have all this experience. So when I had a coach, that coach didn't understand where I came from. They didn't understand business. They didn't understand my business. They didn't understand, the Fortune 50. They didn't understand what it was like to be a founder, which was something I was sort of considering. And now I'm all of those things. I'm that business executive from a Fortune 50 companies, many, three. And
Mm-hmm.
I, I am now also a founder. I have that perspective, that experience, and I'm a coach. And I've lived this horrible accident that is basically putting everything that matters into action and everything I had been taught around coaching in action so that I could change my perspective and come out on top stronger, better. And I'm happy to say 9 weeks later, and the doctors had said to me it could take up to 6 months. And they said, and about 9 weeks later, I was back on a plane on a trip to Seattle, a business trip. I was back at the gym and it took crazy hard work. It was like training for a marathon, but it was like training to walk again. But it can be done, and it's all about mindset. And so those moments, many of them, is what made me consider the importance of this. This is, I would call it the origin story, and made me decide this is what I want to do. And why women? I've always had a passion for helping young girls in STEM. I'm on the executive advisory board for First Robotics. I've mentored girls, young women. I love helping. That was the part about my jobs, in all of my jobs, leading the teams, helping the teams grow, but particularly women. And so it all sort of came to be together of this is what I'm going to do. And yes, it was hard. And the nice thing about when you're going through a coaching training through the International Coaching Federation, I'm surrounded by coaches. And so I've been helped over the last 8 months to kind of say, yes, stick with it, you can do this, Natalie. And I'm very grateful to that community of coaches who I can tap into all the time, because that's my peeps now, and
Yeah.
helping me achieve what I'm achieving in very quick order. It's all about mindset.
It's an incredible story, and I know you summarized that in 5 minutes. So, I'm sure you could have gone into further details with all the other, things that happen along the way.
Oh
So,
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah, that I'm sure is like a keynote half-hour presentation that
It
you
is.
run at some point. But
It is.
that is an incredible story of recovery, diversity, like adversity. Sorry, and resilience. Like, to me, having the challenge, getting the resilience and the fight. A lot of people you hear out there that they give up and they don't take the challenge. They figure this is it. This is their new life, their new reality. And the fact that you turn this thing around into not just a point for yourself, but how now you're going to impact everybody else out of this whole thing is incredible to, see that shift, not only for yourself, but for everybody else out there that now you're impacting. So, yes, I'm going to say that I'm double punning that with the name of your business, but it's really amazing hearing some of the founders' stories of it. And I think that I'm going to add to it, that's two things that are massively significant to what's happening here. Number one, I think there's a massive leadership gap right now, especially for women entrepreneurs. Women entrepreneurs are still a very small percentage of entrepreneurs out there.
Yes.
And I belong to a lot of executive leadership groups out there. And usually that is less than 25% of all entrepreneurs almost globally. There's
Yeah.
only a few countries in the world that those numbers are higher. I think Australia, I think, is one of the top, or New Zealand is like the top in the world. The rest of the countries are in that 20 percentile. And then even from the leadership executive right now, I think a lot of companies are in a big pressure to kind of start, equalizing it, but the skill sets have got to start matching, and the confidence and the skills are there. I think the confidence and that whole aspect of like, okay, you can do this. This is what you need to do to be a top executive, a CEO. And I think that there's always been this, how did they get there? How did you get to be, a leader at, HP or Microsoft? Like, people just look at it and go, how?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen a lot of these executives step back and now provide those roadmaps. I don't see a lot of that in the circuit. And so the fact that you're doing this, I would say you're a pioneer, or one of the pioneers out there today, carving this out and really giving other women out there, both young coming out of university all the way out to the ones that have been in the workforce, trying to figure how they're going to advance their career. I think it's a huge need in the market today, and I think that I commend you for recognizing it and bringing it to the forefront.
Thank you. And I just want to add something that you made me think of. One of the key things that I learned inherently through this accident and this recovery journey is, and I kind of knew it all along, but you have zero control on what happens to you. Period, end, full stop, right? I mean, could I have skied better? I mean, I've been skiing my whole life, right? Like accidents happen, or,
Mm-hmm.
people get sick. You have a boss that says something terrible to you, your customer, all these things happen. You don't have control on other people or these spontaneous events. You have 100% control on how you deal with what happens to you. And that statement, that shift in mindset is incredibly empowering. And what I've learned is when people feel empowered, they get shit done. They wake up, they are full of energy, full of, excuse the French, piss and vinegar. They wake up, they're awakened. And when you feel you have control, that's when you become unstoppable. But if your mindset is, woe me, I broke my pelvis in, I won't get into so many details, in many places, and you cannot walk, you have to learn to walk, and we're talking wheelchair, walker, cane, like the whole 9 yards. It was awful. And you're talking to an athlete. Like, how does that even work? Can't control that.
No,
Cannot. But
no.
how you deal with it is entirely in your wheelhouse and in your control. And that's a very liberating thing to believe and to acknowledge. And so back to your question about, a lot of people will say, well, how did you do this? How did you get into HP? How did you get into HPE? Hey, there's luck, which you can't, that's beyond you, but it's your own mindset of, I can do this. And we talked earlier about, the way you look and you step into a room and people have already made up their mind. Your confidence is something you're wearing, and that your confidence is in your mind. And if you do not have that confidence, if you are not wearing confidence, if you've not understood how to be confident and how to stop those little voices in your mind, in your head from being louder than what you want, you're going to show up in that room and you're going to self-sabotage. And I don't know, and this is true for all leaders, athletes, we're human. I guess that's the thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so perspective is really, really, really important. And understanding that your thoughts, that's your compass or your GPS to where you're going to go. So you better start thinking positive thoughts. And there is something to the glass half full versus the glass half empty. But that's what mindset coaching, executive coaching is all about. It's about you telling me, working with you to figure out what are those limiting thoughts that are preventing you from being unstoppable so that your confidence that you're wearing is kick ass.
You need to coin that phrase that you wear your confidence. I think nobody's ever done a book on wearing your confidence, so maybe you're going to coin that up and you're going to.
Oh, a book's in the making.
There you go, books in the making. You know
Okay,
what? I
you
love
heard it
that.
first here on this podcast.
There you go, and I can't wait to read the first edition. So I think that is a incredible second podcast. We'll have to have you back on. But when we look at everything going on today in the workplace, a lot of companies are trying to meet certain, call it, criteria, is trying to figure out how to advance their leadership. We're talking the next generation. It's no longer just millennials. I think we've got now like all these other, younger generations coming into effect. What do you see as organizations are getting right, or what do you see as organizations getting wrong that they are not focusing their attention on today for the next generation of leaders?
So I actually have been working over the last several months with several companies, and many of them are saying to me, I'm looking for like a one size fits all thing.
Right.
And this is where I kind of go, yeah, that's the problem. There is no one size fits all. I don't think there ever was, but I would say now it's even harder for a one size fits all. Not because we have so many different people, generations, work backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, you name it. Not because of that, but because the pace of change that is happening all around us, whether it's because of social media, whether it's because of AI, whether it's because of so many other things, the pace of change is relentless. And when the pace of change is relentless, we as individuals all have a unique way of showing up to the situation and dealing with it. And there are some things that you can sort of, I like to say, plug yourself in, go to a course, drink the Kool-Aid, walk out and be smarter. But most of the stuff that's going to differentiate the elites, the elite winners, the elite athletes, the elite results getters to everyone else are those who have figured themselves out and have figured out how they themselves can be in this crazy change, in this crazy pace of whatever it is that's happening in their work environment, in their careers, in their life. And the organizations that get it right, that understand that there are some key leaders in their organization that they need to drive success. What does it take for that leader to thrive, to be unstoppable, and recognize that what's good for Eris is different for Natalie, that what's good for Natalie and what's good for Joe is different from what's good for Jane. And what's good for the women in the organization is probably likely very different for what works with the men. So for figuring out that you've got different groups, target the ones that are going to be your next rainmakers, the ones who will drive your business. Understand who those people are and invest in them. That's what I'm telling them to go do. So yeah, you can create a whole big program, but what I'm about here is I want to work with your top leaders, the ones
Mm-hmm.
you think will make a difference, especially the women. Um, as I am saying yes to men too, but mostly women. There is a time when it'll only be women. And let's work with them and let's make them unstoppable. And the impact to your business you will see it in the multiple returns. If you're a founder, then I love working with founders because founders, they see the results right away and it's up to them to drive things. And now I understand how hard it is to be a founder. So that's kind of a different kind of approach. But when I talk to corporations, the ones that I've been in, and talk to them about what works and what doesn't, I truly believe in it's not a one size fits all. It really isn't, at least not for those big leaders that you believe are going to drive your business big time fast. You want to invest in them.
Okay, so and that's really amazing, and I have a clarifying question on that. So you talked about founders, you talked about leadership, you talked about different sort of groups of people. My question for you, just from a clarity standpoint, so I'm let's call it a mid management executive or mid management person that wants to move up. I would reach out to you and say, hey, look, I'm, mid management. I want to move up to AVP. I want to move up to, some sort of C suite. This is where you kind of do the one on one coaching. At the same time, if I run a small mid sized company and I have, let's say, a 4 to 6 person management team, mixed bag of some women, some men, and we're struggling, would you help us work as a group for some clarity around that and help us kind of identify some of the, I call it, because there's always, like you said, about men and women, the reward mechanisms are very different. I know that for a fact. We know this from childhood, that there's very different reward mechanisms for boys and girls. So when you get to the corporate level, you're not just always talking about dollars and cents here. There's different strings that pull people's interest.
Yeah.
So do you work with organizations, small mid-market, or only big companies and top executives, or do you kind of, right now you're filling in a few different gaps?
Yeah, so I'm learning what I like and what really is cool and fun. And so what I've done is because of my background in kind of Fortune 50 companies, I've targeted those kind of companies and I'm talking to them about, their senior people, how do we help them and which one? So that's one avenue. The other one is I'm talking to people, like you said, that are in a company, it doesn't matter what size, and the team, and actually I'm talking to a customer right now where there's been so much change in that company, and the way things were and the way, and there's a lot of matrix. And so they want to get people from many groups together. And we're talking about doing what I'm calling a group coaching. So a 3-4 hour session. And so it's kind of like a one-on-one coaching, but it's with the group. And so we talk about each of their beliefs about the other group and of the other persons and what they need to be successful. And so I call that group coaching. So I definitely do that as well. And then there's different types of people, whether you're a founder, whether you're a C-level or a mid-level. And I can say that I've coached all of those in the last 8 months. And it's kind of like I'm wherever the need is. I have a feeling that things will shift as I learn more. I talked to this person yesterday who is a fund manager for women in tech. And he has, I think, 40 companies in this fund, and they're all women founders. And so he's kind of saying those founders, they need coaching. And so, maybe one day that's where I'll exclusively live. I don't know. I just love helping women be more successful. And I have not really cared where they came from. There might be a time where I will. I've worked with CFOs. I've worked with marketing people. I've worked with HR leaders. I've worked with business leaders, with founders. And it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what's preventing people from being unstoppable is their mind. It's their being human. And I don't really care where you work or what you work and what level you're at. I just want you to be the best that you can be. And so that's kind of where it goes.
No, listen, as a young company, and especially when you're in a coaching, I call it service business, you're still sometimes identifying those markets. You like you said, it's a little fluid, in the sense of different groups, different networks, and so identifying that will eventually evolve. If you're going to be doing it for the masses, like a Tony Robbins type of thing, where
No,
you're
no,
not going to be doing that.
no, and that yeah. So that's one thing that I won't, like. I'm like a Mel Robbins. No,
No.
so I'll never say no. But here's where, like I said to you, my program is 3 months. It's
Yeah.
10 weeks, and it's intensive. So the person needs to be signed up for that and committed to that, and it's an investment. I mean, it's an investment in themselves. It's an investment in their company. It's an investment. And I work with just a small, 2 handfuls of clients at any given time. And so that is my model right now. That's where I believe I can make the most impact, or help make the most impact for those business leaders. And I do worry, in a good way, that will quickly make me overwhelmed. To be honest, I have never worked this hard ever. And I say that having worked at Fortune 50 companies. I'm always on, always thinking about what's next. And I've actually started to think about, how do I grow? Because right now it's me, myself, and I. And so I've actually already started talking to the where I learned to be a coach, and trying to, and I think there's a model there of getting the people that graduated from there and who maybe don't like doing the business development or the stuff that I'm doing, and have them come in and help me. And I'm helping them because they don't have to do all the stuff that they never even knew that they'd have to do as part of coaching. And there's a lot of people out there. So
Yes.
still trying to figure that out. But right now I'm 1000% focused on the clients that I have, helping them realize whatever goal they set. Like the first meeting, we set the goal. What do you want in 90 days? What are you here for? And interestingly enough, I'd say 7 out of 10, they thought it was something and it turned out to be something else. And by week 4, 5, or 6, it kind of depends, they have what I call their aha moment. They're like, oh, gee, this is where everything changes, everything shifts. And every single meeting between week 1 and week 10 is kind of a recalibration on, we start with the goal at the beginning of the meeting. And by the end, it's like we're making many steps progress to your bigger goal. And like I said, by week 4, 5, or 6, it's where they have their aha moments. And sometimes it's happened once by week 7, person's like, okay, well, I guess we got nothing else to talk about. I go, well, you got 3 more meetings with me. Let's find stuff. And then we found other stuff to talk about. And that was like the best example of somebody like literally learning how to do this themselves. And then we applied it to different parts of their life, and then they walk away also with tangible ways that they can be coaches to other people too. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, you kind of jumped the gun there, because that was actually going to be my next question. If you, without naming names, can you give us some sort of like aha examples of like how you took somebody who was stuck and you know helped them shift and kind of gone through that experience? Like, can you still share us a little bit of
Yeah,
detail?
there are so many. I was talking to a CFO this morning, and he how do I lives in the eastern part of the country, and has decided that he wants to be less of a CFO and more of an entrepreneur, and more and do other things. And so he thought when we first started working together that his issue was that the person he was working for was making him work more than what he had signed up to and contracted to work. He's like, well, look, I'm the CFO. I'm supposed to only work 3 days a week with them because I've got other clients and I'm consulting and da da da. And this client is making me work 5 days a week. What he realized was he was the one in his mindset. He couldn't say no to people. He couldn't say, and then he ended up devaluing himself and making himself not worth as much. And so when he had his aha moment, he actually went back to that CFO, to the president, and the president said to him, you know what, we need to hire a full-time person, which he didn't want to be. He wanted to be that fractional CFO, and like this was happening. And so he's now building his business and getting other clients and happier, and has had that difficult conversation with the president that he was with, and here we go. So he's that for him was just awesome. So that was just one example, and I've got another woman. I can give you so many examples, and they're all different, but they're all the same. It's all based on, what did they want, what
Yeah.
was stopping them, and what big results did they get as a result.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing these stories, living through them, because we all as individuals feel like this is exclusively to me. I find that, oh, this is my problem. I am the only person in the world that has this problem. The reality is that there's so many people that have gone through, if not the exact same metrics, but a lot of the pieces can relate. And then it's about putting those stories together, or combining, this person's experience, and putting it together to say, here's 2 similar cases of a very similar story, and this is how they dealt with their challenge and how they've gotten through it. And being able to deliver that, I think, is sometimes the most difficult part. And it seems like you've got this knack to kind of break down some barriers for individuals, and people are just kind of like becoming that trust factor, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I understand why. I know that when I used to listen to you at your presentations, I would be like, I understand now why you're doing that and why you're there. Doing this now on a one-on-one or even a small group session has got to be even more impactful. So I love it. I love it. It's amazing. So I have to kind of transition a little bit here. So, we're one of the things that I want to ask. I got 2 questions left before we kind of have to wrap this up. So for me, you're in hyper growth mode. From what I'm gathering, this
Yep.
is not just, your typical, I'm starting a grassroots operation here and it's like kind of meandering. You're in hyper growth. This organization in your venture is, growing in leaps and bounds. What is the most important value you want to commit to and keeping as this company, and potentially helping thousands and thousands of people annually? How do you want to keep that value together? Or what are you going to protect the most?
Yeah, so I think you said it. Customers first, clients first, always. And that is what will help me grow. Their ability to say, Natalie or Inside Out Impact Group has helped me become unstoppable. I've shifted from whatever my poison was. I was stuck somewhere and now I'm this. That is the most important thing. And I will never compromise listen. And so every single person that works with me will feel listened to, will never feel like I'm trying to impart somebody else's solution. Because while we may all have very incredibly similar issues or problems or things we're dealing with, we are individuals, and how we deal with it is very, very unique. There is not one size fits all in terms of how to deal with it. And the other thing is, as a coach, you never tell the other person what they should do. Ever. The person has to realize for themselves what they should do. And that comes from asking powerful, insightful, reflective questions that make the person go, oh, wow, I never thought of that. And sometimes they're like, thank you for telling me that. And I give them the recording. And then I'm thinking, and I make sure, I hope I didn't tell them. And then I didn't. I never do. They think I did, but I didn't. They
Uh-huh.
came to that realization themselves. It's like you have kids. You talk to me about your hockey dad,
Yes.
and if you tell your kid what to go do, guess what? They're going to do the opposite, or they're
Yes.
never going to consider. It's the same thing with people. So yes, we have very similar issues, but how we deal with it is unique. And I will meet you where you are. I will work with you at your own pace, but I can guarantee you I am a super question asker. And I might, I could be direct sometimes and I will challenge you, but every single one of my clients have appreciated that because they get the results. And so the value that I will never compromise on is listening to my clients, making them totally feel valued, having them recognize it's them. It's all about them. This is your hour. This is your meeting. This is your agenda. I'm here to help you. I am not selling you. I am not teaching you. I am not trying to change your mind about anything. I'm here to ask the question so you get to your aha moments. And that will never change. And then at the end, if there's time of that meeting, then we can shift into, mentoring, or if they ask me, like, we'll absolutely, help them, give them tools. And that's part of, the value they get from me as a coach, but also me as a former business leader and from me as a founder. So it's an incredible value of information that they can get from me. But the number one is me as a coach, and with the experience that I have and my ability to ask them those powerful questions.
Amazing. So, asking the powerful question, I actually want to have the listeners out there get one of the first questions that you should ask. Like, so what would be that first question they should ask themselves?
I would say if you are somebody who is wondering, Natalie, what does it mean or feel like if I was unstoppable? First of all, I would say the fact that you're asking that or wondering about that means you're probably not there yet. So think about it. Imagine yourself, in a year from now, if you were truly unstoppable, what could be different for you in your life, in your business, or in your career, or anywhere else for that matter? What could that look like? Dream, 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 dream big. That's the first question I would ask you. Once you've come up with a few things, I'd say to you, what's holding you back? And then you'd go, oh shit, a whole bunch of stuff. And then I'd say, okay, what's the cost for you of staying exactly where you are right now? And if you don't get those questions answered, and then they go, oh my God, I never want that to happen. We have one life.
That's
Go
right.
live it big.
That's
Go
right.
be unstoppable. Make it all happen. Do the crazy thing, like, leave a 30-year corporate career and start your own business.
Yeah.
Go do it. This is your life. You got one chance. And have you ever had an elite athlete? Have you ever heard of an elite athlete who didn't have a coach? And
No,
then
not
I'd say,
today.
aren't you an elite leader? And they'll say, I think so. What's stopping you?
Yeah. There's that's awesome. I love that series of questions there. And actually you gave everybody out there more than one question. I love it. But you hit something that's critical to me, and I personally have a vice with one saying that everybody loves to say. It's one day. So how many people do you know that say, one day I'm going to go on that cruise, one day I'm going to go to Alaska, one day I'm going to learn to skydive, be a scuba diver, whatever it is, and that day never comes. And so it's really, for me, and that's actually, I can do a whole segment just on that one statement. That to me is a big one, and you kind of referenced that in the sense of like,
Totally.
what's it going to cost you if you don't do it? And I'm sitting here going, yeah, this is the life that most people live. They think it's going to happen one day, and it will never happen unless you take action. And that's the realization, the aha moment, that you become now aware that you need to take action and find the resources to move forward. So Natalie, I think that's incredible.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being on our podcast. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. I hope all of our listeners enjoyed this. I want to thank everybody who's listened to it. Hopefully you like and subscribe. Natalie, I want to again thank you for being on our podcast, and I hope you'll be back someday soon.
I hope so too. And I don't know if your listeners, if they want to reach out to me, if they'll have more information on how to do that, or do you want me to tell them right now?
You can. Why don't you tell us the website or whatever contact details, where to find you? Because I think you need, I think everybody should know about what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So like I said, you can find me on the web, Inside Out Impact Group, one word. You can email me directly, Natalie at insideoutimpactgroup.com. If you go to my website, you can book a free discovery call. If any of this resonates and you want to learn more, happy to meet with you for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it takes, so I can answer all your questions and we can figure out if there's a fit and if this is the right program for you. But if you're thinking, I'm not unstoppable, I'm not feeling like I'm unstoppable, and I love what you said, Erez. Hey, one day I will be, one day I will do this, one day. The day is now. And if that resonates with you, reach out and let's have a chat.
Yeah, perfect. Well, again, thank you, Natalie. I really appreciate it. It was amazing having you on our show today. Much success on your new venture. I know you'll do amazing after I've known you for such a long time at a few of your career paths. So looking forward to keeping in touch and seeing how this progresses. And we'll definitely bring you back in the future to talk about another subject.
Thank you so much, Erez. I really appreciate you having me on your show, and thank you to all your viewers.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe. We'll be back for more, again, Beyond the Firewall, your business bytecast. Have yourself a great day.